And so we are going to learn Parshas Lech lecha, and we're going to start a little further into the Parsha. We're going to start in chapter 12, verse 6. Chapter 12, verse 6. And this is the where I chose to share this insight. It has to do with Avraham traveling outside of the land where he was born. He went to Haran. He went to Haran, and even from Haran, Hashem says, "I want you to travel further." So he left Ohr Hachaim, where he was born. He went to Haran with his whole family, and then Hashem told him, "I want you to go even further, and ultimately to the land of Israel." And who goes with him? Lot, his nephew. Of course, his wife goes with him. Lot, his nephew, and they go to Israel. Now, when they go to Israel, the verse uses an interesting term, and this is verse 6. It says, "Vayavor Avram ba'aretz." Avram passed through the land. So it doesn't say that he went to Israel or he came to Israel. It says, "Vayavor," he passed. It's an interesting term. It's not the common term to use when someone comes somewhere, that they vayavor. And then it says, "Ad makom Shechem, ad Eloin Moira." They came to the place of Shechem, Eloin Moira, which is basically Shechem, and it mentions that the Canaanites, that nation, was then in the earth. Now, so what's the term vayav? So Rashi says it means he entered into it. The Ohr Hachaim says that sounds a little surprising that the Torah would use this word, vayavor, passing through, when he entered into the land of Israel. So the Ohr Hachaim wants to explain a little differently. So what does he say? So he explains, the Torah is telling us, Avram passed through the land from place to place, and none of the people there had any complaints to him. What are you doing here? Why are you here? This is our land. No one told him anything. And even though the owners of the land, the Canaanites, were in the land that he passed through, no one dared utter a peep. No one bothered him at all. And that's what the pasuk is telling us. That Vayavor Avram ba'aretz, he went to the land, but he passed through it with no problems, no obstacles. No one bothered him. No one was protesting. Seemingly, it was almost like a blessing from God, meaning God arranged that there shouldn't be any challenges, any obstacles. And so that's why the Torah uses the word vayavor to say that he passed through easily. Because it could have just said he came to the land, but it says he passed through the land, which means he went in the land and traveled around and it's what seems like with no problems, no issues. And that's one insight. That's one way of understanding why it says this. Another way of understanding it is that Avram traveled in the land in a way of someone just passing through. Vayavar means like to pass over or pass through, and he traveled like a traveler, not like a resident. And the similar term, Avram Ha'ivri, when it uses that term, there's also a concept that he traveled like a visitor. And he treated the other residents like, you people are living here, I'm a visitor. And the meaning behind that is, at least the deeper meaning, is that Avraham knew that this is not the final stage of his, that he's here as a permanent resident. He knew that, this is a means to get to where Hashem wants to take us, which means that even though he didn't know maybe about, no, the truth is he did know already about he did know already that they're going to be 430 years later, they're going to be in Israel. So he knew that ultimately they're going to be, permanent residents here. But the way the Ohr Hachaim is saying it, it's almost similar to the fact that we don't own anything ourselves. We're all passing through. We're all travelers. You think that you're settled? Not exactly. We're traveling through wherever God takes us. That's really where we are going. And so the reason it uses the term Vayavar is to teach us this idea. Famous story. There's a famous Hasidic story, and there's a famous. I've heard the story in the name of the Maggid of Mezrich, and the same story I've heard in the name of the Chavetz Chaim. So it seems like the story has been taken to different groups, but basically the story is that there was a wealthy man traveling through Europe, and he came to the Maggid of Mezrich, so traveling through Russia, or whatever Mezrich is in Ukraine, and he stopped by the Maggid. He came to the Maggid's house. He says, "Well, you don't have any furniture," and the Maggid looked at him. He says, "You also don't have any furniture. What are you bothering? You're surprised I don't have furniture? You have nothing." So he says, "What do you mean? I'm traveling." So the Maggid of Mezrich said, "I'm also traveling. This is not my permanent place. I'm traveling. Where Hashem has taken me. We're in Golus now. Ultimately, Hashem, when Mashiach comes, then we'll be, we're travelers. So this is the way Avraham felt. I've heard the same story. The Litvisha seem to have taken that story for the Chavetz Chaim. They say the same story, but basically the concept is here in the Ohr Hachaim HaKadosh. Similar, it seems like this is what the Ohr Hachaim is trying to say, that Avraham felt that this world is only a means to get to the next world. It's only we're traveling wherever God takes us. We aren't permanent here. We're being moved around by Hashem. And so it uses the term Vayav or Avram Ba'aretz to emphasize that idea, that he never felt himself that he was settled, that he's a real resident. You people are just popping through. He's the resident. No, he didn't feel that. He felt wherever Hashem takes him. You could understand it in a few ways, but it either means that Hashem is in charge, or it means that this world is only a means to get to the next world, or Hashem hasn't given us the land of Israel yet in a permanent way. He said he's going to. So there's different ways of you could understand it, but that's the idea that Avraham was humble. Now, what does it mean? And this is of course a topic of discussion here. Rashi also has something to say about this with regard to the Haknani Oz Ba'aretz. That means that the Canaanites were then in the land. So who did own the land of Israel? Whose land is it? Rashi on this verse tells us, well, the Canaanites were now in the land of Israel, and they were conquering the land from the children of Shem, because the land of Israel fell in the portion of Shem when Noah divided up the land. How many kids did Noah have? He had 3 kids, Shem, Ham, and Yefes. Noah had these 3 kids. And he divided the land to the three kids. Imagine how much land each one got, the whole world. But Shem got the land of Eretz Yisrael. And at this point, where 10 generations later, 9 generations later, Abraham is 10 generations from Noah, so it's 9 generations from Shem. So he's now going through the land, and what's going on? The Canaanites are conquering the land they're in the midst of conquering the land from Shem. And actually it says, Malki Tzedek Melech Shalom. That Malki Tzedek was Shem. He was the king of Yerushalayim, which basically means that he was the owner of, he got the portion of land from Noah. So Avram got the portion of land. I'm sorry, Noah had the whole land. He gave it to his kids, divided the entire earth to his children, and he gave Shem this portion. Now, Canaan, who's Canaan? Canaan is the son of Ham. Ham had a son, Canaan. And there's the fourth son of Ham. So this is Noach's grandson. It's really Shem's nephew. And this is not his land, but the Canaanite decided that they want the land of Israel. So if you think about it, at what point did the first fight over the land of Israel happen? Possible Cain and Abel were even fighting over the land of Israel. I mean, Cain was angry and jealous, but what did he ultimately want? Wanted everything. But then, when Noah, after the Mabul, after the flood, who was fighting over the land of Israel? Well, Noah gave the land of Israel to Shem. He divided the land into the whole earth to 3 people, Shem, Ham, and Yefes. Which part went to Shem? Israel. Where do we see that? Because it says Malki Tzedek was the king of Shalem. He was the king of Yerushalayim. That means that Malki Tzedek means the Shem. That's the same person. He was given the area of Eretz Yisrael. Who comes and fights? Who wants it? Who's conquering it back? Might not have been right away, but within the next 9 generations between Shem and Abraham, the Canaanites, who's basically Shem's nephew, is Canaan, and his kids and grandchildren and so on, they are trying to conquer it from the children of Shem. So they're fighting over Israel. And Abraham goes to the land. Who's there? The Canaanites are in the midst of conquering it. Now Hashem says, says, Avram, to your children, I'm going to give this land. And Rashi explains it to mean, I'm returning the land to you because you come from Shem. Shem was the first one to get the land after the flood. Shem was supposed to get this land. I am going to return it to you because you people are the descendants of Shem. So Osid ani lahachzira levanecha, I'm going to return it to your children. So the powerful message here is that what's the origin of the Jewish claim to Eretz Yisrael? It starts with Hashem's promise to Abraham that you're the ones who are supposed to have it because Shem was the original one who it was given to. So it's like the gift of Eretz Yisrael was Noach's dividing the land, division of the land to Eretz Yisrael. Does that necessarily mean that we deserve it because of that? It doesn't say that here. It just says that Hashem promised Avram, I'm going to return it to your children. So Hashem promised it to Abraham, but there's that idea in it that there's that element of the fact of history that it actually was Abraham's great grandfather. It was Shem's after the flood. And Hashem says, I'm going to return it to you. You are the grandchildren of Shem. So, so that's the Rashi's interpretation. Now, the Ohr Hachaim says that what is it telling us this for? About the Canaanite was then in the land. So he says, I mean, we know that the Canaanite is in the land. He says, it says Eretz Canaan, Arza Canaan. He went to the land of Canaan, which means the Canaanites. So it's obviously the Canaanites' land. So he says, nah, that's not a proof, because very often the term, the title, it's called the land of Canaan because of something that's going to happen in the future. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Canaanites, which means Noach's grandson Canaan, moved there. That's not necessarily what Eretz Canaan means. Eretz Canaan could be named for some event that's going to be in the future, that at some point the Canaanites are going to be there. Could also mean Canaan in another sense, that Canaan sometimes refers to the Jewish people, because the word Canaan, the numerical value of Canaan is 190, and 190 symbolizes Yitzchok. Why? Because he was born when his parents' age together was 190. Avraham was 100, Sarah was 90, so 190 was their age. So there is a medrash that basically says that Canaan, Eretz Canaan, refers to the land of the Jewish people. There's such a Yalkut Shemaini, there's such a medrash that says that, as it refers to Avram, Yitzchok, and they're hinted to in the word Canaan. So so you don't know when it says Eretz Canaan that it means that the Canaanites were there. So therefore, it tells us who was there at the time. Who was there at the time was the Canaan. Is the Ohr Hachaim saying this? Is that he's continuing from his first interpretation, that he says that no one bothered Abraham when he was going through the land. No one bothered him. Who should have bothered him? Oh, the Canaanites are not really too excited. Abraham is the one, everyone knows he comes from Shem. He's this very popular guy. Everyone heard about him. He's the one who's a big politician. He's got a whole, he's a big leader. He's got a whole bunch of followers. He's, and he's coming through the land. It makes sense that they might have been nervous coming to conquer. Yet no one opened their mouths. Now, Eretz Canaan, not surprising. Okay, Eretz Canaan, no one opened their mouth. The land of Canaan doesn't mean that the Canaanites lived there. Maybe there's no Canaanites there. Maybe there's no one bothering him because it's all his grandparents who lived there. His cousin, it's the Canaanites. They're the ones who didn't get this land. They got a different portion of the whole earth. The Canaanites, Oz Ba'aretz, they are the ones who are here, and they didn't bother him at all. Which, again, it seems that the Ohr Hachaim is, when he mentioned this insight earlier about no one bothering him, it seems like he's emphasizing the idea that it was almost like a blessing that Hashem gave Abraham, that no one should bother him. But now comes the Ohr Hachaim says another explanation of what this phrase of Aknani Oz Ba'aretz, what does it teach us? So he says, the Canaanite was then in the land. So this is the opening. It's the opening of the fact that Abraham is going to own this land, is being deserving of this land, even though it's in the possession of other people. As it says, the Canaanite was then in control of the land. But think about it, and this is where you have to dig a little deeper. Who was Canaan? Canaan was the son of Ham. Now, what was the curse that Canaan got when Ham uh, um, he castrated his father or he sodomized his father? What was the punishment that Canaan received? So it says, Eved avodim yihya liyachov. This is in, let's see. Let me pull up the pasuk here. Noach woke up from his wine, and he knew what his youngest son, Ham, did. And he says, Ohr Canaan, first is Canaan. And the reason why Canaan is getting punished, of course, is because Canaan was the one who saw his grandfather naked, and he told his father, and therefore he's mentioned about this. Now, he's mentioned even earlier in the verses. It says, Ham, the father of Canaan. So it says, Ohr Canaan, first is Canaan, Eved avodim yiyel. He will be a slave to his brothers. Now, what's the real problem? So he told his father about it. That's why he's really mentioned earlier. Why is he really getting the curse? So the reason he gets the curse is because what did Ham do? Ham caused that Noach could not have a fourth son because Ham castrated his father, if that's the right term. So he caused him not to have more children. What was Ham all upset about? He was upset about that he wanted more property. That was what he was upset about. He says when Cain and Hevel, they were fight. The land was, there was already an issue with Yerusha So'ilam, inheritance of the land. And Noach has 3 kids. Adam only had 2 kids, and there was already a fight about the inheritance. Noach has 3 kids, and Noach might have more. I better stop them. So Ham was nervous about the inheritance. He was worried about the Yerusha. Can you imagine how much land they had? They had the whole earth, the whole planet. He was worried about the Yerusha. He's not going to have enough land. So he castrated his father. And so his father was not able to have a 4th son. So what happened? He says, cursed is your 4th son, he tells Ham. Ohr bincha Revi'i, that he's going to be an Eved, Shamish, to the older children of mine. And he's going to have to serve the children of my older children. Elo Hagadolim. Now, we're now talking about the Canaanites. We're talking about the land of Israel. The Canaanites now want this land of Israel. And we're mentioning that the Canaanites were cursed, that they are really a status of a slave. And whatever a slave has, now comes the next part of this puzzle, is the slave is an Eved, whatever he owns, being a slave, is owned by his master. So if the slave finds something, goes to his master. If he, whatever he gets really is his master. So anything that he acquires goes to his master. So in a certain sense, when it says here, this is the way the Ohr Hachaim is understanding it, the Canaani was then in the land. Okay, Canaan is called a slave, and whatever he acquires is really owned by his master. So he has no kinyan, he has no ability to own his own property. And the Torah says that he's a slave to Shem or Yefes. So what happens? What follows? So any descendant of Shem or Yefes who takes Canaan's property and takes Canaan himself, he acquires him and his land. Yizke bohem uve'ad masam. It's a very, if you think a little deeper into the story, this is the story. These are slaves. They're slaves to Shem and Yefes. So whoever anyone from Shem and Yefes who takes him, he's basically his slave. And Hashem came, Kadosh Baruch Hu. So Hashem came, the Zika Hadavar Liavram, and he gave the right to fulfill this to Avraham, who's a descendant of Shem. So this really fits with the next verse where it says, in the next verse, it says, Hashem appeared to Avram and he said, to your children, I am giving this land. And it says, and he built a mizbeach to Hashem who appeared to him. He built an altar. Because he heard about the children and Eretz Yisrael, he's going to get the land. So the Ohr Hachaim is explaining that according to halacha, according to monetary laws of property ownership, really anyone from Shem and Yefes is basically capable of or eligible of taking anyone from the Canaan to be their slave. Now, Hashem said, however, I am specifically giving this land, I'm specifically designating Avraham to be the one who's going to be the fulfiller of this curse, that he's going to be the one who is the owner of these slaves, meaning of the slave and the land. That the land of Eretz Yisrael is now going to go to Avraham. So what is the legal history of the land of Eretz Yisrael? It's the Canaanites tried to take it away. Noach really gave it to Avram, gave it to Shem. Shem's grandson is Avram. The Canaanites tried to take it. Who are the Canaanites? They're slaves. So the Canaanite slaves will really, if Avram takes it back from them, it's his. And Hashem says specifically, not only if you take it, but I'm not allowing the children of Yefes or anyone else from Shem to get this land. I'm specifically giving it to you. And in other words, it's almost like Hashem is explaining the curse that Noach gave, that you're going to be an Eved to your siblings. You're an Eved to Avram. Avram is getting the land. You're conquering the land. Okay, that land is going to Avram. So that is an interesting little insight about the land of Israel, how it ultimately belongs to Avram. And without this, if not for the fact that it was Canaan, let's say it was Yefes that was in the land of Israel at this time, what would happen then? Hashem would not have really been justified, so to speak, if you could say such a thing, to take it from Yefes and give it to Avraham, because Yefes is eligible to have Ham as their slaves, because part of the curse was that Canaan is a slave to his older brothers and their children. So meaning that really Yefes could be the owner. It happens to be that the Canaanites were in the land of Israel. So now Hashem, justifiably, if you could say such a word about Hashem, Hashem chose that, okay, now there's no reason why I can't choose that it's Avraham specifically. I'm designating Avraham to be the one to get this land. So that's sort of like the legal explanation of how Hashem, it says Hashem keeps what he commands us to do. He keeps these laws. So how could he go and take land away from someone? from someone else? The answer is no, he follows the laws of monetary laws. He took the land away from Canaan, who's a slave. Canaan is a slave. It anyway goes to Avram. He just decided, they designated that it's Avram. Specifically, it's Avram. Yes, Mordechai.
Yeah, isn't there a story about there was this man who was worried about what would happen to his possessions after he passed away? So in his Tzavah, he said that he's giving everything to his slave, except that his son can choose one thing, and the son chose the slave, and therefore the possessions actually went over to his son.
Yeah, sounds like something from the sounds like a story somewhere in the Gemara. But right. So ultimately, this is the legal understanding of where Hashem was coming from, giving the land to Abraham. Okay, that's a definitely an interesting little insight over there. Now, the Ohr Hachaim then continues, and he mentions that the rabbis, and this is like a medrash, but Rashi brings it. It says the land originally was designated as property of Shem, and Abraham was the first of Shem's offspring to come and claim it. So when Hashem said to Abraham that to your offspring I will give this land, he was saying that Abraham, you are the one who's going to inherit it. And according to this approach, so when Hashem informs us that the Canaanites was then in the land, he means that the Canaanites never gained ownership of the land because Canaan is a slave. He can only hold the land on behalf of Shem's offspring. The hand of the slave is like the hand of his master. Now, what is the Ohr Hachaim saying this? What he's saying is that when a slave takes something, it automatically belongs to his master. Canaan is a slave. He can't take anything for himself away from its owner. He can only hold it for them. And until they come in and claim it. So the way the Ohr Hachaim initially was explaining it was the land was ownerless. Canaan was the first one. In other words, the way the Ohr Hachaim explained it, he didn't emphasize that Shem was there first. That was Rashi's interpretation. I put the two together. But really, you could have learned the Ohr Hachaim a little differently. You could have learned the Ohr Hachaim that the Canaanite was then in the land, and he was conquering the land, not necessarily from Shem. He was there conquering the land. You could learn it that way. And being that he's a slave to Shem or Yefes, so Hashem said, the land is going to now go to Avraham. You're the slave, and you are conquering the land from no. It's not like someone else owns it yet. You're just sort of conquering it for yourself. You're taking possession of it, but really you're a slave. So so it's going to go to either Shem or Yefes, whoever takes you, whoever claims ownership over. But the Ohr Hachaim then brings the Rashi's interpretation. Well, the Medrash or Rashi, these interpretations, they emphasize this idea that I mentioned earlier about really Shem owned it. So according to that, it's not that Abraham gets it from the Canaanites. The Canaanites never even owned it. The Canaanites couldn't have even owned it. And really, they're just whatever they own is really like the master owns it. And Hashem he was a child of Shem, and he came now to take possession of his possessions because Canaanite is his slave. The Canaanites are his slaves. So, so that's sort of the way we were understanding the Ohr Hachaim initially. It's just the way the Ohr Hachaim says it now seems like he's seeing it as two separate interpretations. One is without Shem's involvement, in other words, that it wasn't originally owned by Shem, or the other way is no, it was originally owned by Shem, and the Canaanites have no ownership in the first place. Whatever they take is really just the owners, and ultimately Hashem designated Abraham to be the one who they were taking ownership for. He's the descendant of Shem. He's taking ownership for it. Now, the Ohr Hachaim has another insight here. He says, Oid Yirtza, another insight is that Hashem wants to tell Avram that I am giving this land to your offspring, your children. The question is, didn't we know that this land is already meant for Abraham? The land belonged to Shem, which we saw from Rashi. That's one point. And additionally, there is a pasuk here in Perek Yudalid where it mentions Malki Tzedek Melech Sholem that I quoted earlier, that basically also hints to this, that Shem implies that Shem was the owner. So we sort of know that the land of Israel was given to the descendants of Shem. And Avram is one of those grandchildren. Now, we wouldn't know until this pasuk that Canaan was the one was conquering it from them. So a person would think that Hashem is giving a promise to Avram. He's saying, what's Hashem giving Avram? We already knew that Shem got this land. And even though the land was called the land of Canaan, that's not such a proof that the Canaanites were there. So therefore, Hashem said, the reason why I am giving you a promise about the land is because the Canaanites are here. And because of that, Hashem is making a promise that he's going to give the land, that even though the Canaanites have taken the land, I'm giving it to the descendants of Abraham for various reasons, which we've explained already. But it gives us a little more insight into why Hashem has to say this, that I am giving this land, the Canaanites is now in the earth, and that's why I'm making a big deal again. Yeah, you know that the land is yours. Yeah, you know that it's supposed to be yours. It was supposed to be given to you. You were supposed to have it. But guess what? The Canaanites went and conquered it. And therefore, I'm re-emphasizing it, that guess what? It really is going. It really is for you. And so here we have a very nice insight into the land of Eretz Yisrael, how it how Hashem was legally giving it to the children of Shem, to Abraham, to the Jewish people, how Hashem legally gave it to us. Okay, now comes the next pasuk. So that's verse 6. The next pasuk says that Hashem appeared to Avram, and he said, I'm going to give you this land. And Avram built a mizbeach to Hashem, Hanira Elav, who appeared to him. And Rashi tells us the reason why he built this altar. He built an altar because he was so happy. He now heard about he's going to have children. To your children, I'm going to give, I'm going to have children. So Avram was so happy he's going to have children. And guess what? He's also getting this land of Eretz Yisrael. Built an altar. So the verse 7, the Ohr Hachaim says that what is the meaning of La Hashem Hanira Elav? To Hashem who appeared to him. He built an altar to Hashem who appeared to him. Like we need the Avram needed to describe Hashem. Oh, who did he make the altar for? Hashem who appeared. Hashem who appeared to him. We don't know who Hashem is. So the pasuk is emphasizing the intense love, the extraordinary love that Avram had for his creator. Because Hashem appeared to him. And he gave him these good tidings. It's going to have offspring. The land would be given to him. And Avram did not value these gifts as much as he had joy over the fact that Hashem revealed himself to him. This is a very powerful, extremely powerful Ohr Hachaim. I must say, if you came to this class just to hear this, I mean, of course, everything else is words of wisdom from the Ohr Hachaim, words of gems of wisdom. But this is a beautiful insight where it says, what does it mean, the Mizbeach, the altar of Hashem who appeared to him? What does that mean? It means that that's great. You're giving me children, giving me Eretz Yisrael, but you know what? It's all about the main joy is it's Hashem who appeared to me. That's where my intense love is. Yeah, I just got rich. I just got this. Children. These are wonderful. These are great blessings. But the intense love of Abraham was that Hashem revealed himself to him. He had the revelation of the Shekhinah, the divine presence. And that's what it means. Soiva smachos es panecha in Tehillim. It says, the fullness of joys, soiva smachos, the fullness of joys is es panecha, is your presence. Meriting the Shekhinah, that in a certain sense it overlooked. It caused him in a certain sense to overlook, to minimize the joy that having children and having the land. And that's what it means. He built an altar to Hashem who appeared to him. The Torah explains here the reason. Siba simchasai. The reason why he built the altar is because Hashem appeared to him, and not because of the promise of having the offspring and having the land. V'havein, and understand this. And this is a symbol for his descendants. That many of them disregarded the natural desire of having children because they were overcome with a greater desire for Torah study. Like Ben Azai, who said he declined to get married with his claim that my heart desires to study your Torah. He acknowledged that it was a mitzvah to have children, but he said that he doesn't have time. He's busy studying Torah. There's no room to fulfill it. Of course, it's not so simple to person shouldn't really necessarily follow this idea that Ben Azai did, but the concept is such a powerful concept that he was even willing to overlook. And these are spiritual things. They're not just physical enjoyment of having children and having Eretz Yisrael. These spiritual benefits. in order to have the Shechina, he overlooked. He in a certain sense overlooked these other blessings. The interesting thing is that Rashi said he built this mizbeach because of those reasons, because of the thanking Hashem for blessing him with children in Eretz Yisrael. The Ohr Hachaim says it's not that. Hashem told him about Eretz Yisrael. He told him about having children. He's going to have children. But that's not why Avram built the altar. In other words, the Ohr Hachaim is arguing Rashi. Rashi gives the simple interpretation a child can relate to. But the Ohr Hachaim says this is a much more powerful idea. It's that Abraham overlooked that. And I am wondering, just comes to mind that, if you think about it, Moshe Rabbeinu really wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael. Why? Want to fulfill the mitzvahs there. So in a certain sense, Moshe wanted the spiritual enjoyment of Eretz Yisrael. How does Moshe compare to Avram? Abraham, according to this Ohr Hachaim, Avram said, I don't know about Eretz Yisrael. I want your Shechina. Is there some difference there in the way Abraham, according to this Ohr Hachaim, the way Abraham saw things versus the way Moshe? Could be that there is no difference. It could be you could say that Moshe wanted to fulfill the mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael because that to him was the highest level relationship with Hashem. In other words, that would be a higher level Shechina. The mitzvahs done in Eretz Yisrael, to him, that's like, wow, that would be a real powerful revelation. So it could be that they both wanted that same relationship with Hashem. And that's why Moshe wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael, not because of Eretz Yisrael itself, which is sort of what Avraham was saying. Not that I care about Eretz Yisrael's great, but that's to me, it's my relationship with you, Hashem, that is, it eclipses the need for the gift of Eretz Yisrael. The gift of Eretz Yisrael is incredible, but it's the mitzvahs to be done in Eretz Yisrael, the Shechina. So it could be that Moshe and Avraham were, in a certain sense, really in the same league of their both wanting the Shechina. Possible to say that. He doesn't bring the story with Moshe. It's just interesting when we talk about the fact that Avraham was willing to overlook Eretz Yisrael in order to get the Shechina, and we talk about Moshe Rabbeinu being wanting Eretz Yisrael, even though he had a great level of Shechina wherever he was. I mean, Pel Daber Boy, right? Upon him, face to face. He saw Hashem face to him, so he had high level. But maybe he felt in Eretz Yisrael, it's almost like even a higher level of Hashem's grace, Hashem's glory. Maybe it would even merit to see a higher level in Eretz Yisrael, maybe along those lines. Okay, so let's see where. The next verse. The next verse is Pasuk Ches. Pasuk Ches, the verse 8, tells us that he built an altar there, to Hashem who appeared to him. From there, he moved to the mountain east of Beisel. So he moved from this Shechem, this area of Shechem, where he built an altar, and he moved from there to the east of Beisel. So Beisel was on the west. and he pitched his tent there, and the eye was on the east. So Beisel is to his west, eye is to his east. He built another altar, even Sham Mizbeach LaHashem. He built a Mizbeach to Hashem, and he calls out in the name of Hashem. And then from there, Avram traveled to the south. So here we're somewhere near Beisel. He's east of Beisel, and what is he doing there? He builds an altar, and he moves to the mountain, Hahara, to the mountain, some mountain that was east of Beisel. Okay, and he builds this altar. Rashi says that he builds this altar because here he's prophesizing that his kids are going to have a sin. And there was a sin in the book of Joshua, Achan, taken from the spoils. And so Abraham davens over there in this place, Beisel, near Beisel, somewhere near Beisel. Okay. So the Ohr Hachaim says, the word vayatek is not exactly the correct word if we translate it the way we did. Vayatak would be more apropos. Vayatak means, and he moved. Vayatek means he moved something. He moved someone, something else. So who did he move? If he himself moved, it should have just said Vayatak, and he or Vayatak. He was moved, and he But Vayatek means like he moved some other entity. So the way Rashi learns, Rashi says, Vayatek misham ohaloi. He moved his tent from there in Shem, he moved it to Beisel. That's the way Rashi. So he moved his tent. But the Torah doesn't say the tent. It does say he pitched his tent over there, but it doesn't start off saying that he moved his tent. So the Ohr Hachaim feels like there's missing something. So he says, perhaps, maybe this means Ramaz, it's a hint. That Hatik Sor Mimakam Shenera Elov Sham. That Avraham caused Hashem to move away. He's calling Hashem the rock. That Avram caused Hashem to move from the place where he appeared to him. And he says, this is what it says in Tractate Brachos. It says, Halamancho teyozev aretz v'yatak tzur mimakayma. It's a pasuk really in Eov. He's taking this idea from vayatek here to the word vayatak in Eov, where it says over there a similar word, and it uses talks about an actual rock over there. But basically, the Gemara says that it refers to when a Jew is davening, and then he leaves the place where he davened. He causes Hashem to leave that place as well. Which over there talking about leaving shul early. So you call if you leave the shul early before they finish, that's with the understanding there that halamancha will because of you, the world will be abandoned. The yatak tzurgum kaimay, and Hashem will be, the rock is removed from its place, meaning Hashem, you're going to leave early, and then you're going to cause the Shekhinah to depart. So here Hashem appeared to Avram, where he built that altar over there in the Beisel. I'm sorry, in Shem. And when Avram moves away, so it's almost like Hashem also moves away. So Avram caused Hashem to move away.